Over the past few days, we've been doing a whole lot of fabricating, but it's finally time to switch out that welding helmet for the crash helmet. That's right, we're gonna put the coil springs back in this thing and see how it rides. Welcome back to the garage, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna get back at it on the Big Block Miata today. My plan is to put this thing on the ground and see how it sits with Mustang suspension both in the rear and now the front. But before we get into that, I want to show you guys what I've accomplished over the past week modifying this Miata for this Mustang suspension. So the first thing I had to sort out was how to attach that Mustang K-member to the bottom of the Miata chassis. Now the Miata had from the factory 4 studs coming down that attached the factory cradle, but they were not in the right position. So what I did is I built this plate here with 2 studs coming down that are in the right position. I cut the factory studs out of the way, and I've got a couple of nuts holding the K-member in. That actually turned out to work really well. I still got to do some trimming and some reinforcing, but that's where it's going to be. So the next hurdle we had to overcome was the strut. So this car from the factory had just shocks up here. All the alignment was done with the control arms. Now this is actually the pivot point for the steering. So we had to be semi-accurate with our placement here. Since the Mustang suspension is much taller, we had to build these adapters for the top side of our McPherson strut. Now we used the factory bolt holes to mount this down, but we had to enlarge the shock hole just a little bit to get everything in there. Now we've got some hollow tubing welded to the factory Mustang top plate for the strut. Now this eliminates the ability to adjust the suspension, but right now we're not concerned with that. So I've made a lot of progress, and I thought the worst of this job was over, but it turns out I had forgotten how hard it was to put a front spring back in a Mustang. So I'll be honest with you, I've got about an hour in this last night and I made no progress. So I'm gonna put the crash helmet on and get back to work after a good night's sleep and see if we can get this spring back in this car. So before I let this coil spring get the better of me a third time, we're gonna try another approach. So far we've been using brute force. Now we're gonna try to be a little smarter than what we're working with and build ourselves a special tool. Before I show you guys what I did to make this work, I'm gonna give it a try and make sure it does work, and then we'll go over the details later. I don't have my crash helmet on, so I had to move out of the way. Looks like it worked to me. Before I show you guys how I managed to get that in there so easily, I have to give credit where credit's due. I went online, did a bit of research, found a company called Maximum Motorsports. They actually have a special tool they sell on their website that bolts to your lower control arm, and it helps make it a little easier and safer to get the coil springs back in these Mustangs. So what I did is I built a permanent version of their special tool. Now, it's just a piece of plate steel with a bit of a rolled edge. I added this little support here, it's just an old bolt, for just a little bit of added bracing. What this does is when you're putting your spring in, normally if you're right here in this position, you put a floor jack under it, it would just kick out. But now, it actually kind of rolls the spring around and lets it drop in the hole as you're jacking this lower control arm with the floor jack. So now that we've won the battle of the spring, I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that modification to my other control arm and then get both sides of the suspension built up so we can put it on the ground. With the control arm alterations made, this side of the suspension went together in just a couple of minutes. So now we've got both sides installed completely. I've got wheels and tires on it. Guys, here it is. This is the world's first Big Block Miata. Now, maybe the world's first 5-lug Mustang conversion Miata. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. We're going to end this video off right there, though. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.